All right, we'll open session. We'll convene. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lara,
Here.
Ms. Cabral,
Here.
Mrs. Cordero,
Present.
Mr. Valencia,
Present.
Mr. Hollinshead.
Here. Item 7A, report out from closed session. Information was shared on item 5A, public employee employment. Items B and C, there was no information.
Folks can't hear at home. Things I don't hear on YouTube.
I'll work on that. Thanks. The interpreters this evening are it is Cesar Ruiz, and greeting support is Victoria Vences. Thank you guys for your hard work. Appreciate it. This evening, we're going to do something just a little different. Before we get to the pledge and the remainder of the meeting, we're going to dedicate this meeting to Mary Metz. She passed last week. Mary was first hired in our district in 1989 as an intercession teacher. In 1995, she taught first grade at Oakley. And in 1996, Mrs. Metz moved to Miller School, where she taught second grade for the remainder of her career. She retired from there in 2013 and continued to work as a substitute teacher here in our district. I think many of you probably know that her daughter, Sarah Outland, is taught in the district for some time as well, and now the AP at Livin. I was fortunate enough to have two of my kids in Mrs. Metz's class for second grade at Miller. And I was telling the board earlier, I think the thing that I remembered is she had this really relaxed kindness about her. And by that, I mean, she just kind of imparted this chill attitude, like nothing was going to stress her. Nothing therefore was stressing her kids, but she was really just very gentle and kind and sweet as well. And that really kind of was something that you felt from the get-go, first parent teacher meeting and then on. So I really appreciated her for that. And she was really a wonderful asset on that Miller campus. And I know that Sarah spent a lot of time with her lately, and she'll be missed. And I know Mrs. Cordero, you had some time to spend with her as well.
I worked for a couple of years at Miller School as an AP, and it was always a pleasure to work with Mary and support her. They had a great grade level team collaboration, and though she never seemed to be uptight or overly concerned, she very definitely held her expectations were high, and she held her students accountable, and they really thrived under her guidance. So our heartfelt sympathy and prayers go out to her entire family and those who knew her.
All right, we'll move on. Everybody stand for the pledge, please. Ms. Cabral, since you're, I don't think you've done that just yet. Can you lead us in the pledge?
Ready? Hi.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. And we'll move on to item 8, public comment. Public comments are intended for members of the public to address the Board of Education on items involving the school district. Such testimony shall be limited to 3 minutes each, 450 words per person or subject, and 15 minutes total on each topic. If an answer to a specific question is requested, the board president will, if appropriate, direct administration to respond in writing. Do we have public comments? Mr. Beecher.
We have 2 public comments on non-agenda items. We have no public comments on agenda items, so we'll call those two.
Please.
First is Tiffany Marquez.
Before we start my timer, can we just recognize the people that are here tonight to support special education? So if you're here to support special education, could you guys stand up? So my name is Tiffany Marquez, and I'm a resource specialist at Adam Elementary School. And I'm here to ask for your support in regards to hiring and keeping highly qualified special education teachers. The school board has been extremely supportive of special education in the past, and I'm hoping this still remains true. Many board members have come and visited Adam Elementary School and observed our co-taught classes and seen how included our students with IEPs are. Board members have also supported myself and my students by donating to mine and my co-teachers' Donors Choose projects. And for these things, my students and I are very grateful. This is my 10th year in the district and my 14th year as a resource specialist. I am unique in that I have spent my entire career in special education. One study that I read stated that the burnout rate for special education is up to 25%. Another study found that special educators were 11% more likely to leave the classroom and 72% more likely to change schools than general education teachers. I've seen many of my peers leave special education for general ed positions or district level jobs. Our job is challenging and it gets more difficult every year. I'm one of the biggest advocates of inclusion when it's done correctly and with enough staffing. My gen ed peers and admins at my school site have embraced inclusion, advocated for our students, and worked tirelessly to make it work. My co-teachers are the best, and they've embraced our co-teaching model for years. However, we need more highly qualified special ed teachers to support our students with IEPs. Our students deserve to have the best of the best teaching and supporting them. In our district, we have 6 uncredentialed special educators. They're teaching the students with the highest needs. We appreciate that they're able to fill these positions, but the likelihood of them burning out and not staying in special education positions is higher than credentialed teachers. One of my own children has an IEP in a neighboring district and her resource teacher isn't credentialed. So I see this problem from the side of the parent and the teacher. Many districts in our state are able to hire and retain SPED teachers because they offer stipends, percentage of salary as stipends, and even separate salary schedules. And we have included copies of a document that we created, and I will give it to you guys. My colleagues and I are asking for your support in hiring and retaining qualified special education teachers by making our district one that is appealing to work in and appealing to stay in. I would like to close by inviting board members and district officials to come to my school site and see what a day in the life of a resource specialist looks like. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amy Dolan.
Right. My good friend Amy Dillon was delayed. Is it okay if I read her statement?
That's fine.
My name's Thomas Brown. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Adam. I work with Amy Dillon and I totally agree with everything she said here. So this is written by her. Good evening, school board members, administrators, and colleagues. I am Amy Dolan, a 4th grade teacher at Adam School. I'm here tonight in support of all special education teachers. These amazing teachers deserve more, actually need more than the district is giving them. I've had the privilege of working with Mrs. Tiffany Marquez, our resource specialist, for 9 years now. We are co-teachers, meaning together we teach ELA to our 4th grade students. This year, we have 7 students with IEPs, and likely more than that by the end of the year. We teach together so our students can be fully included in their general ed classroom. Next year, the inclusion rollout will happen in 3rd and 4th grade. Our co-teaching has prepared me for this transition, probably more than most gen ed teachers. and I am here for it. I believe the inclusive model is best practice for special education students and general education students. But I have concerns for my colleagues in the special ed world. First, their caseloads are excessive. It's difficult to manage 28 grade level students in a regular classroom. What I see my co-teacher doing, designing and planning instruction for 28 individual students across multiple grade levels, is a full-time task. But she also assesses students, some not even from our district, writes IEPs, conducts hours of meetings every week, and sees students in pullout groups, in addition to co-teaching in 3 classrooms daily. We can't give her more hours in the day. The district won't lower the caseload numbers, so maybe it's time to compensate these amazing men and women with a salary increase or stipend and hire more qualified teachers in the department. The sad reality is that many special education teachers are feeling burned out and ready to leave. And as the rollout of inclusion in upper grades continues, we need to retain these people in the district and hire more special trained individuals. What I am most concerned about is that next year, Mrs. Marquez may have to stop co-teaching with me because she will need that time to support the inclusion rollout in other classrooms, in addition to all the other work she does. If we are here to support students, we have to support our teachers first. Before I go tonight, I would like to humbly invite any of you, all of you, to visit Tiffany and me at Adams School to see what co-teaching is all about. You are all welcome. Thank you.
That's it.
All right. Thank you guys for your thoughts. We'll move on to approval of the agenda as presented.
Agenda as presented.
I'll second. Been moved by Mrs. Cordero and seconded by Mr. Lara that the agenda be approved as presented. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lara,
Aye.
Ms. Cabral,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mr. Hollinshead.
Aye. And we'll move on to consent.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second. Moved by Mrs. Cordero, seconded by Mr. Valencia. Roll call.
Mr. Lara,
Aye.
Ms. Cabral, Mrs. Cordero,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mr. Hollinshead.
Aye. As there are no action items to receive presentations on this evening, we'll move on to item 12, discussion items, first reading of job descriptions, occupational therapist and response to intervention teacher. Is that you, Dr. Grady? I don't have my glasses on, so I'm just making sure.
Saying I'm short, right? Okay, the first job description we have in front of us on page 89 is the occupational therapist position. This is a brand new position to the district. It's a classified management position, 195 days. It's under the direction of some of our great special ed program specialists actually here in attendance. Any questions on that? I know I've talked to for some editing things we'll take care of on some of this as far as moving some of the items under ability to where they belong. But that's an editing, right?
Is this a precedent for us, Dr. Grady? I mean, I don't think have we not in the past hired an OT or had an OT that's directly in our employ? They've been services that we've acquired outside of it.
It's always been
contracted?
an outside contracted, I believe. I mean, I've been in the district since 93 and I don't think we've ever had one. So no.
We currently contract out for 2.5 occupational therapists. And so it's been an idea that the system's had for quite a few years that instead of contracting out, these need to be our own employees. And so we're moving on that now.
And then so I guess the follow-up question would be, in trying to make this position competitive, have we then looked into what an outside occupational therapist would make in, say, a hospital or a private clinical setting?
As far as placement in the salary,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
and
believe that
salary
was-
offered.
I think the way that the salary was landed upon was looking at what other districts are paying for their therapists that they're employing to make sure that we can compete in that market. Not necessarily directly with hospital OTs, but with educational occupational therapists.
Yeah, and that's the reason I asked, because I mean, it is something that I'm familiar with in my profession. And so I'm not certain, you know, we most every week talk about shortages that we have in trying to hire in different places. So I'm not sure that might not be something that we want to revisit and look at to be competitive or to be enticing to have people look and get the best qualified folks, or understand maybe how that would you know, what other things we could do to make it an attractive position. I know perhaps the number of days is part of that, as opposed to a contract or, you know, somebody who works in a clinical or hospital setting. But I mean, I just would encourage us to be really thoughtful about making it a really attractive package.
Thank you.
Thanks,
And
John.
my question would be regarding the classification as being classified management. And I'm not connecting the dots on that.
I know prior to coming into the role, I think Melissa and Matt kind of did some research on both of these. So I'm going to, again, phone my friends and have them help out on this one.
We did. And what we found is that this position is classified in every way that you can classify a position in every district in the state. It's a certificated position, it's a classified position, it's a classified management position. You find it in many different ways in different districts. And so we did research how to connect the qualifications and licenses that are required with the certificate side of the house, and there wasn't a clean connection there. There wasn't a clean connection on the classified side either. And we think that with the independence that's going to be needed for this position, that a management position would be best for what we'll need. And that's how we landed on classified management, was just the combination of the licensure and the demands of the position.
How many occupational therapists will you be hiring, and how many schools will each?
Did I see two? I think I saw two on the recruitment page. Yes.
So, and again, this is when we're talking about job descriptions, it is the position to start, and the recruitment is a separate step. But the first thing we want to do is make sure we have a solid idea of what the responsibilities are going to be and how we define them in this job description in its two readings. But that is the plan. Right now, we're contracting out for 2.5, is what I heard Ms. Dutra say.
And that's through the county?
Yes, it's a county regional program. I believe it's offered in the Orchid School District. And so we think that we can get the services we need if we supervise this person and direct their work with 2 positions.
We also added the additional days so that they would be available to provide services during the special ed extended year program in the summer.
Any further? All right.
My only other question,
No more job description.
under major duties and responsibilities, the very number 12 on page 89, it just states reevaluate students' individual occupational therapy plans on a regular basis. What is regular basis?
Well,
Kind of.
typically when you see, I mean, it's really an reassess model. So nearly every time you see the student, you're assessing what their goals were or where they are in having achieved their goals, and then reassessing so that you can either reset or progress. So it's I would imagine it's probably every time
Okay.
or
that
every
thought occurred-
interaction.
That thought occurred to me because, you know, motor skills, physical skills, the kinds of things that I associate with occupational therapy would be not quite the same as academic skills. So I would think are more likely to see progress made more quickly. So that prompted my inquiry.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That also caught my attention, that particular point. Because on a regular basis, is there any type of way to gauge, whether that's 2 times a year, 3 times a year? Because just the language seems a little bit vague. I know it's dependent on the student's needs, but do we have an idea of how regular these will take place?
They have to be evaluated. Sorry.
So I was just going to guess that IEPs are reviewed on an annual basis, and so that's a yearly basis. That these review periods are probably going to be, what do you think, program specialists? Probably
they have-
monthly, maybe, or something in that. It's a couple times a month at least to determine. Because I know outside of the annual IEP process, which is annually, this puts into context the duties more than we meet annually for an IEP. So on a regular basis.
I'm not sure that it's, my
How you-
interpretation of the wording, and just because of what I do, wasn't that it was as formalized as that. But that, at least from a documentation standpoint, each interaction you have with the individual, you're assessing where they are that day, or doing in some kind of intervention, reassessing and moving on. So it depends probably in part on what the documentation, or it could depend on what the documentation scenario is. I don't know what it is at our level, or how it would be done here. How does that work?
The students have to be formally evaluated every 3 years. So formally, it's every 3 years. At each IEP, they would also reevaluate at that time to see progress on goals. And then, just like you said, each time they're meeting with the student, they're looking for progress and then seeing how that's going. So kind of to your point, board member, there's a number of answers to that, which is why that's written in a little more vagueness, because depending on the student, it might change. But the legal answer is they must be formally evaluated every 3 years. And then they have service logs that they complete after every session.
And actually, I reviewed this and didn't kind of connect this, but item 10 and 11 basically speaks to that. Having a system of documentation and then communicating the results to the educational staff, which would then lead to making any changes that were necessary in the plan. So when I go back and look at that, but just by itself on a regular basis, just kind of was like, okay. And I know annually and triannually
Right.
are the
Right.
legal requirements,
Right.
but as we've stated, occupational therapy is a little bit different domain.
Right.
So thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so Dr. Grady, can we move on then to the response to intervention teacher?
Sure. The intent on this position, as you can see in the brief description, is to pull out support for literacy and math in small groups and individual. And the intent is to take this position, as you can see, it's 186 days. It's a certificated teacher position, and to have one of these on all 21 sites. That's the intention with this position, to provide those supports that are outlined in the represented duties. And so, other than that, it's a every school site. I think we're looking at 21 of them across the board. Teachers are waiting for this one to come out. I got a couple emails today and said, board's got to do what they've got to do. And as soon as we get it board approved, we'll put it out for a posting. So they're waiting for this one, actually. So I hope it turns out positive at the end.
I will add that it's also a push-in model, especially schools that are really struggling with space. And so this is direct support to students, but it can be a push in or a pull out model. That's completely up to the classroom teachers or the school site on whatever model they're going to employ for this.
I appreciate that clarification because I think that was more of a pullout and concern before.
Should we add that to the description?
It's in there.
Yep.
It talks about push in or pull
Second,
out.
second.
Got it. Thank you for that.
Push in and pull out support literacy.
There it is.
Sorry. Yeah, Mr. Valencia.
Yeah,
Also-
a question like this position sounds extremely critical, right, to the success of our students. And it caused me to think about is this position particularly for support for English and math, or is it across subject areas?
I believe the focus is literacy and mathematics, but you can answer that, Melissa.
Yeah, again, we want to make sure that schools have the flexibility to use these positions where they see fit. And so yes, it's for literacy and mathematics, but if your literacy is in all the subject areas. So if you're teaching history, you're still doing literacy. If you're doing science, you're still doing math and literacy. So I think saying math and literacy, we're covering all of our subject areas. It's probably not meant for PE, right? But in the other academic areas, it could be in any of them, depending on where the students are and what the needs are.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Not just emphasizing English and math, because we know that when standardized testing are the focus, those tend to be the focus of areas as opposed to, the arts or other, critical areas, sciences, history, things like that. And then a follow-up question that I have is how will students be referred to these services? Is it going to be a teacher referral? Is it going to be something like we want to target like one of these visits per student a year? So how does that take place?
So there's a couple answers to that. One is a little bit like the last answer I gave, is that we want schools to have the agency to be able to create the programs that they need. Schools who have maybe a larger EL percentage might want to use them for newcomers more than they use them for spreading them out through all the grade levels. We don't want to dictate that. We want the schools to be able to have the voice in how they use this position. And we're also, we start Monday. We have a group of folks that are working on our MTSS plan for the district. Part of that is really trying to align. We have something in our district called a cost system, which is like an SST a little bit, if you've never heard of cost. But it's really looking at our tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 supports, and then how kids get entered and exited and what that looks like and what our common referrals are, what our common programs are. So that work is also going on. At the end, there'll be some common language and common definitions and common practices, but still allowing schools to have full flexibility. There's different needs at every school. And so teachers and staff are the ones who know the biggest needs of their students. I know a lot of teachers really want intervention teachers to support with those reading foundational skills, right? Others, we have a new math program coming and they want some support with that. Others have some LTELs in 5th and 6th grade they want support with. But again, we want this to be up to the school site and the staff to figure those things out while we're coming up with some common systems and structures in place for our MTSS system so that there is some predictability and that students aren't in an intervention for life, right? They're meant to be short term so that they can get access to whatever it is that there is a need and then move on. So, but we're going to leave that for the sites to really have a big say in. That answer. Okay.
Yes, I do have a follow-up
Okay.
to that.
Thank you.
So let's take a hypothetical situation. Let's say there's a student that's struggling with their literacy. Like what protocols do we have to be proactive in getting that student some support? Because this is going to be an additional support, I imagine, right? But what protocols do we have in place to support that student that's struggling with literacy, let's say in 3rd grade?
There's probably more than I can cover in one board meeting. There's a lot of layers of support, but the very first one is the classroom teacher, right? They're doing all of their tier 1 work with the students. Then they're also doing all of their differentiated supports that they provide for kids. And then PLCs can be working and they can be sharing students to do even more formalized interventions for kids. And then there could be a type of intervention that they go to, which would be something like this, where it's a push in or pull out model to provide those additional supports. And a host of other things in between.
Can I speak to that a little bit?
Yes.
Even though I've been, out of the classroom teaching business for a while, even before, we started with RTI or MTSS or tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3, even prior to that lingo, there's always been a process in place through primarily our special ed, where the classroom teacher, works with students and at some point makes a decision about whether or not a student needs more support than that teacher can provide. So the process has become, as far as I can see, quite a lot more formalized. So it does not necessarily go directly through the special education process, but you refer to the coordination of services type program where teachers can bring their concerns regarding a student to a group that includes more than just special ed. Based on this job description, and I think what past practice was, the intervention teacher, maybe the ELD coach, maybe, any variety of teachers, maybe somebody that works with mental health, one of the outreach counselors, and they have a conversation about, what are the issues that the student is having, and brainstorm some ideas about how some support can be provided. Initially, it may be informal. If the informal process doesn't work, then it becomes more formalized and it does go through that special ed process. But the key really lies with the classroom teacher and, how they access the resources that are available at the school site. So, and, from my own experience, on occasion, a parent may come to you and express their concerns because of things that they see at home that maybe are not obvious at school, that may trigger a teacher to look into something a little bit differently. So I think the process, especially at the TK through 6th grade level, is teachers know their students well. And, depending on their level of expertise / experience / willingness to differentiate and their ability to do that with any support that they have in their classroom will determine if and when a student goes for something more than that. Does that make sense? Did I say anything that is not currently still in practice?
No, you're correct. And then
Just want to make sure I still am understanding what the process is.
yeah, and we have 17,000 different students. That's what makes teaching so hard. And so it's hard to answer that question because it's the root of why that student's struggling with literacy is an unknown, right? So there's a number of things that could be preventing that. You might have been also looking towards, we have a variety of assessments that also tell us, right? Like how a student's doing along the way, and that helps us with what potential supports that they do need moving forward.
That all good? Okay. Yeah, it feels,
I do, just on the more specific details, and I don't know if I need to do more than I mentioned to Dr. Grady beforehand. Under that list of representative duties, moving on to page 94, item 22, indicates new educators who have not yet cleared their credential will blah, blah, blah. And my immediate reaction to that was, no way am I thinking that a brand new teacher should be even considered as an intervention teacher, because they simply do not have enough experience to bring to performing the job duties that would be required for that position. So I would ask that that be stricken, and that under the experience that we indicate how many years of teaching experience. I think traditionally, when we are looking at teachers to provide support, we've indicated 5 years, and I think that's pretty fair. So those would be my recommendations.
Can I, and just, if I hadn't really thought of that, Ms. Cordero, but could, rather than a specific number of years, maybe you say upon completion of induction and assessment or evaluation or peer assessment and evaluation or recommendation. I think my concern is that, what was voiced earlier this evening and with the shortages we have in all measure of classroom teaching, is that were we to say 5 years, and I'm just your example, that we might be passing over or missing somebody who is qualified or has the aptitude and the wherewithal to do that. Prior to that, I can see upon completion of induction and they're done with their probationary period, that being certainly something so that they're not overwhelmed and they've got their professional development and their mentorship underway or completed. But I would be a little reticent about making a 5-year denotation and having the chance to maybe miss out on somebody. So maybe there's some wordsmithing there that you can make to kind of compromise or figure out a multi-level assessment.
And the other thing is that during the interview process, you can do that identification that the required skills are there, that they can be a support to classroom teachers and to students. But I agree. I would also encourage us not to create barriers inside the job descriptions to, finding highly qualified folks, and let that be a part of the interview process.
I could live with that, and I would generally agree. But having, 5 years is really pretty random for anyone to apply for the position. Hopefully you would be reviewing what their evaluations have been and what their immediate supervisor has to say about their professional development and how they work with their peers, along with how they work with students. So there are a variety of factors that would definitely lend themselves to ascertaining whether a person was qualified and ready to perform those duties.
All right, the board will acknowledge discussion of the first reading of the job descriptions for occupational therapist and response to intervention teacher, and return the items for a second reading and approval at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. Thank you, Dr. Rady. Thank you, Melissa. That was really great. Appreciate it. Wow. Moving on. Calendar of upcoming meetings, activities, and events. There is a March 8th meeting, regularly scheduled board meeting here. And there's also a March 22nd, 2023 regularly scheduled board meeting. And that's all that I got for upcoming events, meetings, activities. Anybody have board reports? Mr. Lara?
No, but all I can say is hopefully we can keep our littles nice and warm in the classrooms these next few days. Me personally, I treat it like a rainy day schedule. If they want to go out and play, that's fine. If not, it's pretty chilly because I can't handle it that much when I'm out in the yard at work. So that's all I've got.
Mr. Rao?
Oh, I have nothing to report today.
I don't have really very much. My husband and I were able to attend the celebration on Saturday with NAACP, and there were a variety of speakers and performers there. And as always, a fairly good turnout, and our family engagement group was there giving out books, a pretty good variety of books too. I picked one up and I was looking at a couple of the others, and one of the gals said, well, go ahead and take it. I said, no, I don't want to be greedy. Besides, I can probably have access to those. So it was nice to see that. And it was probably, even though it was really quite a pleasant day, they hold it in the library, in front of the library, in a very shaded area. And there's like a little tunnel that is created through there. So the wind blows through from the back and it can get chilly pretty quickly. So if I have an opportunity, I may suggest to Lawanda that we consider another location in the future. But the performances were wonderful. The ballet folklorico group was there with very littles and with older students. And of course, the littles won everybody's heart. The older students were very professional and did a great job. And there is, I'm not even going to say weather dependent. I'm not sure if that's the case, but another activity at Pioneer Park this Saturday, although it didn't stick in my mind what time that would be happening. And today, because I'm on the board for what is that committee called, Matt? I can't remember.
The Capital Facilities Corporation.
Capital Facilities Corporation. Yes.
Don't say it too loud. John Raymond will call.
We did sign the documents to refinance our debt service. And so we're very excited with that. And Matt may comment about that. I think we are found ourselves in a very fortunate position, and are moving forward with that. So that will soon be completed in March 8th or 10th or something like that. So, and that's it.
I wanted to share a couple of things to be proud of in our community. Our local high school students, boys soccer team, Santa Maria High School, as well as Pioneer Valley Soccer, are going to be competing against each other this Saturday in, I believe, a CIF finals game. And these young people are the product of our school district. So for you teachers, coaches, I was lucky enough to have Miss Pryor and Mr. Walker when I was at El Camino, and they invested their energy and time in me for cross country and track. And that allowed me to then, compete at the high school level. And it really helped to shape me in really profound ways and connected me to having a stronger academic identity and to making positive friendships. And I think to this day, it set a solid foundation for health, because to this day, I enjoy exercise, and I promote that in my students as well. So we have a lot to be proud of there. I want to encourage everybody in our community to come and support. The game will be at Santa Maria High School this Saturday at 3 p.m. In addition, I've had the pleasure of recently seeing a PCPA performance at Allen Hancock College. It's called The River Bride. Their outreach department has been really great and proactive about reaching out to Santa Maria High School and encouraging us to attend their events. So I'm currently in the process of organizing a field trip. And what was beautiful about the performance, I'm not going to spoil it so you all can go and see it, but it has an all Latinx cast. So the diversity of the performers is outstanding. It's not something that most people get to see when they see a performance usually. And so I want to encourage all of our community to come out and support our local artists. In addition, like Ms. Cordero was alluding to, our district is partnering with the NAACP to promote Black History Month. And I had the privilege of also attending the February 18th event at the Santa Maria Public Library. The speakers were outstanding. The entertainers were outstanding. A lot of the young people were performances by Baile Folclórico members. So I think it's really, really important that our young youth, predominantly Latino youth, but there was others from other backgrounds there, see the solidarity, right? The importance of seeing Black History Month as an extension of U.S. history and American history. So I love seeing our young people supporting these events at a really young age. I want to invite all of you on February the 25th. So that's the date, Linda, I think that you were trying to think about. This Saturday, February 25th from 11 to 5 p.m. at Pioneer Park. So every year when possible, this event happens. I've had the privilege of going to this event. There you'll be able to connect with a lot of different community organizations. Most likely our school district will have a booth there as well. So I want to encourage all of our staff to come and attend this very special event. And oftentimes they provide free lunch, like a barbecue lunch. They encourage everybody to see all the different booths, and then you get a ticket. So there's an extra incentive there to enjoy some Santa Maria style barbecue. And again, wonderful entertainment, wonderful resources that I think all of us should definitely make an effort to support. And I wanted to check in also because in our packet, we often get information about obsolete materials or books. And it was really interesting to look at the resources or the books that were in our packet. It took me back to my elementary school years. For example, there's the book, The Indian in the Cupboard, Where the Red Fern Grows. These are books that are, well over 25, 30 years old. And, I really enjoyed reading some of them when I was in elementary school. But now that I'm a high school teacher and I've had a chance to reflect on what I was exposed to at a young age, I also wish that I had been exposed to more African-American history, more Asian-American history, more women's history. And I'm really proud to say that our school district is being more intentional on diversifying its reading lists. So like Ms. Cordero was mentioning, there was a stack of books that were recommended by the NAACP. And I actually took one of each copy to share with my high school students. And as I was passing them around in my room, instead of paying attention to me in the classroom, they were paying attention to the books that had passed around because they were that engaging for our young people that, they often don't get the opportunity, right, to see African-American history and Black excellence. And so it was a further reminder of how important it is that our young people also learn about other cultures and then also learn about themselves. The materials also reminded me of a research study that came out of the University of Madison, Wisconsin. This is a study that came out in 2018. And so what they did is they evaluated over 3,000 of the popular children's books in our country. And what they found, the statistics that they found on the lack of diversity was pretty astonishing. And so, for example, the data shows that 1% or less of children's books are either written about by a Native American or are featured Native Americans. And so they have a visual of a young indigenous person with a really, really tiny mirror and the inability to fully see themselves. For Latinx children's books, for Chicano Latino books, it was 5% or less of the books featured Latino protagonists. So either books written by Latinos or featuring Latino characters. 7% or less were featuring Asian Pacific Islanders. Only 10% featured African Americans. And interestingly enough, 27% were about animals or other objects. So for example, I remember reading Clifford, the Big Red Dog when I was in elementary school. Love that book. I would still enjoy reading it today. And I would have really enjoyed having access to learning, stories related to Chicano Latino culture, to have pride and develop a strong academic identity from an even younger age. And 50% of the children's books feature white characters. So in this visual, it has wonderful images of this young white child in an astronaut suit, as a king, as a superhero. And we want all of our young people to be able to visualize themselves in that way. So I'm really excited to continue to partner and with our school district staff to make sure that all of our young people get to see themselves in what they learn. And couple of other things that I wanted to share with you all was that on a personal note, when I graduated from Samara High School, I intended to study Chicano Latino studies. That was my intended major. And the reason for that was given the fact that I didn't have as much access to my history in high school or middle or elementary school, I was very intentional of studying my history and culture because I see it as a tool of empowerment, of educational empowerment. And but when I started taking, I took a freshman African-American literature course, and that was the first time that I ever had access to authors like James Baldwin, who happens to be an LGBT African-American. His book, The Fire Next Time, is an awesome book. If you want to read a book that's gonna blow your mind and stimulate your mind, I know that did that for me. And it was so powerful of an experience for me to be one of the few Latino students in a predominantly African-American seminar that it inspired me to major in ethnic studies. So that then gave me more exposure to women's history, LGBT history, my own history as a Chicano Latino. And I ended up leaving Berkeley with that ethnic studies major. So I share that story with you because I think it illustrates just how powerful it is that not only when our young people learn about other people's histories, and on my own. So I see my history as directly tied to the destiny of our African-American community. And I hope that all Americans see their destiny is also tied to the struggles of all Americans. So thank you very much. And I look forward to continuing this work with all of you.
All right, thank you. Oops. Thank you for those words, you guys. I know Dr. McDuffie has several really great books right there in his office, and some of the imagery, I think, with Mae Jemison, who was an astronaut, female African-American astronaut, and others are very inspirational. And I think it does take intention, right? For us to offer and provide those that imagery and those hopes and dreams for our kids. So I appreciate those words. Mrs. Cordero and I attended the first facilities master plan
Steering committee.
meeting. As a lot of words. It was a lot of words. I missed a couple. So there is a facilities master plan process undergoing, and that was really they put a calendar out for us, and so our participation, the steering committees, that is participation in the larger process is really kind of in the middle of the whole thing, and it provides an opportunity for the community, parents, teachers, administrators, district staff, and board members, myself and Mrs. Cordero, to see where they are in the process, what the process is, what some of the things that have already been identified in meetings with the community are, and then kind of further distill out where those needs can maybe be prioritized within the goals that we have as a school district, and then that information will be taken into consideration by the group that we've hired, DLR, and the process is supposed to complete in August. And so I'm looking forward to more of those meetings, but then ultimately what hopefully will be, and I think will be, a very far-reaching and fulfilling process for our kids. I think, we tend to think of things pretty concretely when we think about facilities. We got, if you're at Fessler, you have holes in the field, we want to fix the field. If you're in the classroom and there are things falling apart, there's things that are immediate needs there. But I think this is allows us to be looking into the future and really be kind of thinking outside of some of those real concrete needs. And so hopefully there'll be things identified that we haven't even thought of yet. And also that we'll be able to be aspirational towards. So that was really gratifying. And we have 3 more meetings. 4 total, 3 more. And that goes through May. And that's about all I got, Mr. Beecher. Off to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hollinshead. And appreciate you commenting on the steering committee and Linda on the Capital Facilities Corporation. A couple meetings that I get to coordinate and participate in. To finish the thought that you started, Linda, with the Capital Facilities Corporation, I did learn today that the timing of our entry into that transaction for refinancing the certificates of participation was really narrow. And so the board's quick action in January to authorize the documents that were prepared very quickly by our partners at ORIC, that action set the stage for us to really take advantage of a small window that closed shortly after we got into the market. So thank you very much, school board, for your leadership in making that possible. To thank our partners as well at ORIC, at Raymond James, and also at Feldman Rollap to really step in, give us good advice and get us prepared for that. And then also our partners at DLR Group, Mr. Hollinshead, as you mentioned, the Facility Master Plan Steering Committee is a piece, kind of the hub of all of the different ways that the DLR Group is gathering information from site leaders, from community members, from our facilities department, and from their own observation, walking school sites, every single school site, every district facility, with leaders from that facilities to actually see what's going on, inventory, count what's out there in its condition, to put together a very detailed and comprehensive plan, as you said, Mr. Hollinshead, so that we have an idea about what's actually out there, to make sure that those critical needs are met, but then also to look ahead at what is ideal, what is the ideal learning environment for our students. As Dr. McDuffie said in his intro to the concept, to dream big for our kids, and dream about their future, so that the facilities that we develop add to their learning, add to their educational experience, and don't hinder it. And so I'm super excited as well about where this leads us, and what it provides in August as we get that final plan shaped into the school board for action. So thank you for bringing up those meetings that we're engaged in. It's exciting work.
Linda forgot one thing.
Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., the new Allen Hancock Fine Arts Building will be opening for public purview. I haven't had an opportunity to be over there, but my understanding is that it is very fabulous and offers tremendous opportunities for our students that we currently are teaching, and they can access so much more right here in their own backyard. So if it's not pouring down rain, thundering and lightning, and the lights don't go out, will be the place to be.
Is that the dedication then, or is that just, I think it's both dedication and open?
Both.
Like,
I
yeah.
think 4 o'clock, there's a ribbon cutting
Yeah.
dedication, but then the tours you're on your own. They're not guided, but
It's almost a misnomer. It is a VPA. I mean, there's everything there. It's pretty
Yeah.
incredible.
yeah,
Yeah,
So-
that'll be great.
very excited to see that coming together.
And Mr. Valencia, I forgot to mention, we saw the play together. I would highly recommend the River Bride as well. All about it was really great. And you're right, don't give anything away. All that being said, we will